This is Music Student 101. This is more about us. That's right. We're going to celebrate the year's end with a little bit of story time. We'll start off with some of your stories and finish with some of our own. If you think you already know your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips, get ready for one big digression.
Okay, Matt,
What's up, Jeremy?
I want to begin this episode with the most important question of the day.
Okay, lay it on me.
How did you like the intro music?
I loved it. That was awesome.
You know, the last episode we did was on composition, right?
Yes.
And then at the end, we read a few tips that were provided by our friend Bob Reynolds of Snarky Puppy.
And one of them was steal.
Steal. So this episode is going to be basically just a little bit more about us.
Yeah, so this is our last episode of the year.
Yes, it is.
So we thought we'd take a little bit of a break and do something a little outside our usual stuff.
It's episode 60.
Episode 60, yeah.
Good round number.
Yes.
Every 20 episodes, we're going to do something kind of like this, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of light and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, we're pushing the boundaries this time because I know that people say that they like to hear us in our digressions.
So careful what you wish for.
Because we submit for you an entire episode of digressions.
Of digression.
But I think we're going to have fun along the way. I wanted to call this... Okay, so that bumper track was... there's a TV show called This Is Us.
Right.
A melodrama, a family-based melodrama.
Yes.
And I obviously stole the beginning, the intro bit from that.
Changed just enough to avoid copyright laws and
then threw a little bit of rock sauce on top of it.
Yeah.
To make it our own.
Yeah, nice.
And, you know, one thing I'd like to celebrate about music is its power to bring people together. You know, this being kind of the Christmas time of the year, the holiday season, you think about family, you think about your friends, and there's a little bit of a magic that happens in music, you know? Mm-hmm. A funny thing, talking about music bringing people together.
Yeah.
I always heard about this and didn't know if it was true, but I found this on Wikipedia. So again, take for it what you will. But there was a funny interest, like during World War I, 1914. Yeah, World War I. There was a night where apparently a Christmas truce occurred.
I've heard about this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
According to Wikipedia, the Germans placed candles on their trenches and on Christmas trees, and then continued the celebration by singing Christmas carols. The British responded by singing carols of their own. Mm-hmm. The two sides continued by shouting Christmas greetings to each other. Soon thereafter, there were excursions across No Man's Land, which I guess is the war theater, I guess.
Yeah.
Where small gifts were exchanged, such as food, tobacco, and alcohol, and souvenirs such as buttons and hats.
Yeah. I think No Man's Land was the space between the two trenches.
Okay.
So if you got up and walked around, you were going to get shot
right.
pretty quickly. So
okay, hence No Man's Land.
Hence No Man's Land.
Dead Man's Land.
Yeah.
That was funny. And then the other example I thought of was on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where the aliens and us were communicating through music.
Yeah, oh yeah, right, yeah.
What was it? Yeah, it was like simple kind of.
It was something very simple like that. Yeah.
The dude on his keyboard would be like ding ding ding, and then the ship would be like wah wah wah. Yeah, right. And that was actually shot in Mobile, Alabama. Did you know?
No kidding. I did not know that.
Or somewhere in South Alabama. That's my understanding. But anyways, I just think that's funny. Talk about music and the magic and how it brings people together. And again, the holidays, it's got me in a kind of a nostalgic kind of feel. So today we're going to talk about ourselves a little bit. We're going to talk about our families. We're going to talk about our musical journey. And we're going to talk about this podcast and kind of how it came about. And maybe even a couple of cool little technical things that we do for the recording process. And we're going to try and keep this relatively short because we used up a lot of our memory for the server for this month.
Yeah, we're running short on server time, so, you know.
That can be helped with more donations. I think
it can.
We can crank it up to have longer episodes, maybe.
Indeed, yeah. Help us avoid this problem in the future.
If you truly enjoy our voices that much. Okay, we have a congratulations today.
Yes, we do.
We have one of our Patreon patrons and listeners, Chris Waite, Dr. Chris Waite.
Dr. Waite.
He got his, a medical doctor, actually, who's getting into music. He got his BCA, which is Bachelor of Creative Arts in music, just recently. He aced it with a 95%.
Very nice. Very nice.
He said, as he was walking out of the classroom, he remembered the answer to the one he got wrong. He was taking a class.
Chris, I have been there.
Yes, we have all been there. Oh, 95, so close. Yeah. But dig this, man. It was actually a music context of Western popular music. The question was, what was Buddy Holly's first hit?
Oh, man.
What would you think?
I'm blanking on Buddy Holly songs.
I named my 3 favorites, which were Every Day, Not Fade Away, and Peggy Sue.
Was it Peggy Sue?
It was none of those. See, we would have both failed.
I would have, I'd have had to live with a 95 too, I guess.
Yeah. Turns out it was That'll Be the Day.
I might have guessed that.
Yeah,
if I hadn't been blanking on Buddy Holly songs.
What a great artist, Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, congratulations, Dr. Waite. Well
Congratulations on that BCA. We're very proud.
Okay, what else? We're going to talk about you, our listeners. We have a new review.
Yes, okay. We have ourselves a new review. So this is from Jeff from Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yeah, the review name is like LM Hates It.
Hate.
I don't know if that's right. That's how it's spelled. Why our reviewers have such interesting names?
They do. They do. Yeah. So, Jeff says, I love this podcast because it reviews many of the basics while at times pushing and exceeding the limits of my theory understanding. Yeah, that is what we are here for. I've listened to a few episodes repeatedly and recommend your podcast to my music buddies, so thank you, Jeff. Been playing music as an amateur for 40 of my 50 years and did take a few music classes in college. This podcast makes me sort of understand what things would be like had I bailed on engineering and done music indeed. Probably good that you didn't do that.
All right.
Looking forward to all the new episodes. Hope you all keep it up for a long time. And thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the review. Again, the reviews boost our presence, so keep those coming.
And our self-esteem.
And our self-esteem. Isn't that funny? We've had like close to 40 reviews, and they're all 5-star, so
yeah,
we're just waiting for that.
We're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, right? But anyways, thanks again, Jeff. And moving on, we have ourselves a new Patreon patron.
Indeed.
If you go to patreon.com and /musicstudent101, you can actually give us a monthly donation. And we have kind of a tier system, which I'll talk about in just a second. But first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Melinda No One.
Okay.
That is her anonymity, actually.
Got it.
So Melinda No One of New South Wales, Australia. Hey, we have a lot of people from Australia.
We're big in Australia. That's awesome.
Hey, Melinda. Have you heard James Church? He's got this band called Montgomery Church, and he's based out of New South Wales, Australia.
And is another of our Patreons.
Yeah, so y'all should get together and nerd out.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, we have Chris Waite, who we just said thanks.
Also Australian.
To, also from Australia. Charlene Van Ravenstein from Melbourne, Australia.
Excellent, yeah. So Australian music people, you need to get together.
Yeah, good day to you.
Indeed.
G''T'.
They never get tired of that, I'm sure.
No, I bet not. Melinda says, I play clarinet and some percussion. Crazy about the drum kit. I've been tapping on snare drum for 2 years, on and off with a tutor, more off than on as I work. Wanted to progress to playing on a full drum kit, so I Googled the what and how, and they said it would take 2 to 3 months to get coordination. I did it in 2 months. So
awesome.
Happy. Love YouTube. Love Music Student 101.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much, Melinda.
I guess she gets us on YouTube. A lot of people are subscribing on YouTube, which is pretty cool.
That's interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
And she continues, I play in 3 community bands and wanted a deeper theoretical understanding of what I am doing and why, but in a practical, well-analyzed progression to build that understanding. From your tutorials, I now understand how scales build upon each other via your lesson on Circle of Fifths.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Mm-hmm. We were just talking about that one today, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
I don't have to memorize anymore. I hate note learning without understanding. I like it that I can review again and again.
Thank you so much for the kind words. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of just note memorization without context.
Oh yeah.
Because you're just going to forget,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you know,
Too much.
It's too much, and it's all too much the same material in different ways. You know, that contextual understanding helps you to make more sense, and that actually helps you to remember.
Mm-hmm. One time where you can actually give the theory brain a break. So we have this tier system, right?
Yeah.
On Patreon, we have Unison. Anyone that gives $1 or more can get on our Unison. There you go. Anyone who gives $1 or more can get on our page and watch our videos and hear our extra, episodes.
Our cool little extra stuff, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of videos we put up, and one of Matt's compositions is up there, so it's a cool place to be. That's our Unison. Let's hear that again, Matt. Next, we have our Major Thirds. The Major Thirds are those who donate $3 or more to Music Student 101 on a monthly on Patreon. And these people get a coffee mug. They get all those things, and they get an 18-ounce coffee mug.
They get an awesome Music Student 101 18-ounce coffee mug.
And then we have our Perfect Fifths, who give $5 or more a month. And I think Matt and I decided that our Perfect Fifths will be able to ask us any question they want, and we will record a 15-minute episode just for those on the Patreon page.
Yeah, just answering that question.
Just answering that question. And giving you a howdy doody and a shout out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thanks again, Melinda, for your patronage, and y'all keep them coming. It's really helping out, and it's gonna guarantee that we keep our hosting open and keep the episodes coming out.
Yep, keep us in coffee so we can keep doing this.
Exactly. Now we have listener mail.
Yay, listener mail.
We have Raul Fiorio, a guitarist from Asuncion, Paraguay.
Oh, nice. So Raul says, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing this valuable information. I'm from Paraguay, South America, and I live here. A music career is something that didn't exist here until just a couple of years. Before that, you only had a diploma from an institute for completing an acceptable program with your instrument of preference, and that's why I'm an architect working in construction sites, which I love. That's actually pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think music can inform these other pursuits, personally.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just being biased or whatever, but there you go. He continues, but I try to continue my path in music the best I can. Just a little every day, and your podcast's been crucial for that. I apologize in advance since English is not my native language. Oh, don't worry, Raul, you're doing just fine.
I know, he's actually very good.
And I probably have writing mistakes. You better than a lot of people for whom English is their native language.
Myself included. We talked about that last episode too.
Yeah. I'm in the paper grading phase of the semester at this point. And,
So
it can be interesting.
Testify.
Yeah. Please continue with your podcast the way you are doing, because like me, far away from where you live, there must be tons of other people that can at least listen to how an academic music professional thinks and what it has to say. Because besides the theory and the technical parts, that's what I like the most. I almost feel like I'm a music student thanks to you. Oh, that's great, Raul. And you are a music student.
We got news for you, buddy. You are a music student.
You are a music student. Anyone who wants to further their understanding and ability in music is a music student. You don't have to be attending a college to be a music student.
By the time you hit the play button on this podcast,
you become a music student.
Yes, you do.
And I am a music student, as is Jeremy, and as are we all.
So welcome to the family, Raul.
Indeed.
Okay, now let us talk about ourselves.
Okay. I hate talking about myself in general, but...
Well, actually, I'm going to start us off, Matt, because we spent the whole last episode talking about you. I'm sure they're all bored by now.
Almost certainly.
I kid. We got him. Jokes, we got him here. Okay, so let's see here. First off, before we get into ourselves, again, I want to give a shout out to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th members of Music Student 101, in no particular order of importance.
Right.
We have Mike Cunliffe, our fearless announcer.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
We have Brian Malloy, God of Thunder, who plays drums for all of our soundscapes.
Thank you very much, Brian.
And we have Jerome Chapman, Axe Master General, who plays the guitar on most of our soundtracks. You'll hear anytime you hear something that I probably can't do, which is a lot. On the guitar. That would be Jerry Chapman. So
So we have a little house band going here.
we really do.
It's pretty
In
awesome.
fact, they didn't know it, but I told them, "Hey, welcome to the Area 47 band. You're in a band. Did you know this?" oh, I guess I am. How about that?
How about that?
Okay. So I'm going to get started and tell you guys a little bit more about myself and kind of my family and kind of how it all began for me. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, January 14th, 1977.
Born on a Dublin street. No,
Oh,
never mind.
That
Never
would have
mind.
been
Sorry.
way cooler if I was. My mom is a histologist. She, Rose Burns, she is a histotech. So people send specimens to her. She cuts them, she dyes them, and sends them off to the pathologist.
Nice.
So she's in the medical field. She was always very supportive of anything, very loving and very supportive of anything I wanted to do. Never asked me why I wanted to get a music degree. Neither parent really did. They just kind of cheered me on the whole time. And that brings me to my dad. Now, Dennis Michael Burns they're both retired at this point, but my dad was a retired locomotive engineer.
Excellent.
So he drove trains for CSX in Birmingham. We were in Montgomery until I was about 10 years old, and then we moved to Birmingham for his career
I see.
when I was in the 4th grade. And that's when I met my friend Brian Malloy, who I just mentioned, right?
Right?
This is my longest, oldest music mate, song mate.
Nice.
And so I went to school at St. Rose Academy, which is a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no longer really practicing Catholic. I'm really considered more like agnostic Taoist, I guess you could say. But I really did enjoy the teachings of Jesus Christ. He's still my role model. He's still the man. You know what I mean?
Fascinating. Yeah.
But anyways, so it wasn't until probably, actually 5th grade maybe, I got my first keyboard. They had this keyboard called the Casio SK1 sampling keyboard. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
They had a commercial where this guy was like, "Hey, Rufus," his dog, and he got Rufus to bark while he recorded the
Yeah.
sound.
Oh man. Yeah. There's a flashback. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And then he played "Arr, arr, 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 arr," on the keyboard. Him and Rufus.
Yeah. Basic sampling technology back in the day.
For the first time made available to the consumer,
Right.
who could buy it at Service Merchandise
Right.
for under a couple $100. I can't remember what that cost, but I didn't get the sampling keyboard. I ended up getting another keyboard that made telephone noises and waves and all that kind of stuff.
Right. All the General MIDI sound effects.
Exactly. So I really stuck with keyboard for a good bit. And then when I got into 7th and 8th grade, I started getting into Faith No More. And they had Roddy Bottom, this keyboard player, who does a lot of cool textural kind of strings and really powerful, wide, open sounds. And I just always loved that. So I started to get together with my friend Brian Malloy, and at the time, a kid, Barry Mink, who was playing with us. And we started a band called Paradigm Shift. And then we realized we didn't have a bass player. And
guess what happens?
we had guitar, we had singer, we had drummer. So I just kind of picked up the bass. Brian Malloy was the first guy to show me a bass line.
Wow.
He taught me "Stand By Me." Haha. Do 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 do.
Yeah.
Stand by me. Ever you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
There
yeah,
you go.
I took that and ran with it. His dad was a bass player. He had a Beatle bass, the Paul McCartney bass,
Right.
and I cut my teeth on that bad boy. And that's when I started learning by ear.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of punk rock bass lines, a lot of stuff like that. And I guess and then Brian introduced me to Primus. And
I'm not going to try to play any of those bass
No,
lines.
I still can't really play much of what he does. But I messed around with a lot of it, and I think that really helped me get some pretty good experience points as a bassist.
Right. Yeah.
And then my brother, Chris Burns, he started picking up a guitar. So we started playing a lot together, you know? And it was kind of funny because when I was in college at UAB, I was learning music theory.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working with me at the Bagel Factory. Do you remember the Bagel Factory in Cabo Heights?
Yeah. Yeah.
We
I think
we were
yes.
the doughboys. We were making bagels down there, and I would be trying to pass along my theory knowledge to him, and he'd be like, "Man, can we just make bagels?" I was like, man, I got this knowledge. I got this great knowledge. I want to
Can't
share.
we just make bagels
You'll get
and
better.
be
We'll
happy?
get better. We can play together, you know? Well, my brother Chris, he still continued music and he still loves it. He's a closet musician. He'll admit it. He'll deny it up and down, but he can sing and he can play guitar. And we've written a lot of music together and recorded a few albums under the name Area 47.
I've got a couple of those albums.
Yeah, it's good, fun stuff. Very cartoonic kind of music. And my sister, Gabrielle, she also picked up guitar. She can play a little guitar. My dad played guitar.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I was trying to learn all these melodies on the bouzouki and the banjo, and she would help me out by playing the chords along while I tried to knock out these melodies. So the three of us all had kind of a nice little musical relationship, and we didn't really start. We've always been pretty tight, the three of us, but we didn't really start to get really tight until we started playing music together, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Again, how music brings people together.
Absolutely, yeah.
I also have a wonderful nephew from my sister. Gabrielle has a son, Asher, and he is now 6 years old. He just turned 6 yesterday, which is why we're here on Monday instead of Sunday.
Right, happy birthday.
Yeah. Go get him, Ash. So there's my immediate family. My current family. My family consists of my sweet and awesome, beautiful wife, Heather. She has long, curly red hair. She wears glasses. She loves owls. She works at the Piggly Wiggly, a local grocery store, and she is the wine and beer buyer of those stores. She's got her first level Cicerone, which is like the sommelier of the beer world. And she often brings home tasty treats and samples for me, and it's a great
how
thing.
nice.
Yeah, and she's hilarious. She cracks me up, and I can't say enough about her. She's just very strong, very cool, kind of crass. She's kind of crass, really. But that's funny. I get a kick out of that. When I got back together with her, we dated a long time ago, and then we got back together again. By that time, she had a 5-year-old daughter, Chloe Lundberg, who is now my stepdaughter. She's 14 years old, so I've known her for more than half of her life.
Wow.
She has a bit of a musical background. She, her biological father, first off, Daniel, plays mandolin, plays it very well, and he's a really good guy, and we all get along. We get together and play music together from time to time. But aside from that, she went to the Waldorf School, the Alabama Waldorf School,
which is a conservatory, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Montessori school. Mm-hmm. It's a bit. They have kind of different learning structure from most school systems, but it's very kind of a holistic approach, and they very much involve the arts and humanities in their curriculum. But there, she took violin lessons from Matt Slocum, who was our piano guy. We had our piano episode with Matt.
I remember.
That? And she also took some piano from Stuart McNair, a friend of ours. Played in the band Pain. It was really, really good bands, kind of ska band. I think they're getting back together, too.
Oh, sweet.
He plays accordion, horns, guitar, piano, all kinds of stuff. Her 8th grade year, she took guitar lessons from Sarah Langford, another fine Birmingham musician. And she took banjo from a guy named Herb Trotman, fretted instruments.
Right, yeah.
And so she has a lot of music in her little soul, sweet little soul.
That's great.
She's a roller derby girl.
Oh, wow.
And she's big into anime. She loves to draw. She's big into these cartoons, and I have a hard time keeping up with all these cartoons and all these names these characters
There's a
have.
lot.
But it's pretty fascinating, and she seems to have the creative thing. She's kind of focusing on that in school. So.
That's excellent.
So that's kind of my crew right now, and I love them to death. And they all. Hey, here's another thing. Heather has always loved musicians. She supports musicians. I mean, a lot of people kind of see the musician as kind of a child.
Right.
And we are, kind of.
Yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely. Yeah.
But it does take a special kind of person, male or female, to kind of support a lifestyle that can be a little uncertain sometimes. It's not always the quickest road to the bank.
Right.
But again, I thank them for their love and support, and they have mine, and it's a cool thing. Matt.
Yes, sir.
Enough about me. Tell me about your pops. Tell me about when you grew up. Tell me about your mom.
Let's see. Where to begin? Well, originally I'm from a place called Sylacauga, Alabama, which is a very, very tiny town that it sort of existed at the crux of a marble quarry and a power plant and a paper mill. And between these three things, this sort of town, very sort of industrial-minded town kind of came about. My dad worked at the power plant for 40 plus years, just retired this year.
Congrats.
Yeah, when he started, he was 17. I did not exist yet. He started shoveling coal, worked his way up, and retired as a person in charge of construction crews in a research and development situation. So yeah, that was him. My mom worked most of my life. She worked out at the quarry in Sylacauga. She also had worked in several hospitals, making it up to the nursing administration office, where she was part of a team that kept the nurses on schedule and and their responsibilities. They are both retired now.
Very nice.
And loving it.
Yeah.
I also have a brother. He's my younger brother, and that's always been a little bit of a joke because he's a significantly larger person than me. He's about 6'1". He's about 250 pounds. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He was a football player in high school, and he works now at the same power plant where my dad worked for so many years.
Matt, as long as I've known you, you've never been one for body fat.
Yeah, I'm kind of a skinny guy. I'm probably the fattest I've ever been now because because of my girlfriend situation, which we can get to in a minute.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about Fran and
yeah,
her
we're
cooking.
gonna talk about Fran. But yeah, that's my immediate family. None of them were musicians. My grandparents and uncles and aunts were the musicians. So on my dad's side, my grandmother played piano, and my aunt and uncle played piano, and my uncle played some guitar. On my mother's side, my grandmother also played piano, and my grandfather played guitar, played bass, sang in a barbershop quartet.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. When I was growing up, I would go, during the summers, I would spend every day at my grandmother's, and we would play piano. And when I started playing bass, I would play bass, and she would play piano. And
That's cool.
yeah, we would spend all day doing that. We were playing basically playing Southern Baptist hymns. I was raised as a Southern Baptist, and we were playing those hymns out of the hymn book, and playing the chords and playing along to the bass and things, and then I would go over to my that was my paternal grandmother. I would go over to my mom's side, my grandfather on my mom's side, and he would get out his banjo, and I'd get out the guitar, and we would play bluegrass.
So you're rocking out with the grandparents.
I really was. So that's where the music stuff came in. I came to Birmingham fairly early in my life. I came to study music. In the beginning, I've envisioned myself becoming like a record producer or a recording studio technician or something like that.
Right, because you went the tech route at first, right?
Yeah, right. Same as you, yeah. And eventually, I just sort of kind of became a music academic. I played in so many bands, I don't even remember them all. Everybody needs a bass player, right?
Yep. You'll always work.
You'll always work, and but yeah, that was kind of me growing up.
Yeah.
And
you came to Birmingham for the university, right?
I did. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny when you grow up in a little town like the one I grew up in. You're always sort of looking to the bigger city. I mean, we would when I was a teenager, we would drive up here every weekend. Just because there was more to do. In the big city. Not that we were doing any of it, but
cool tall buildings to look at.
Cool tall, yeah. Go hang out at the mall. There was no mall in Sylacauga. Right? So.
Go sit on the dinosaur at the Red Mountain Museum.
Yeah, go check out the good movie theater. But yeah, by the time I was in my early 20s, this was just kind of my home.
Yeah.
I do have a girlfriend of many years. Her name is Fran.
Yeah.
She is a third-generation Sicilian American, meaning her both sets of her grandparents were immigrants from Sicily. Her parents were then, of course, Sicilian, and they met. And she is a third-generation Sicilian. She has food recipes that have been passed down for generations, ever since the old country. So that's why I'm so fat now. I eat well. I mean, we're talking about traditional Sicilian cuisine and Italian cuisine, and extraordinary cook, and it's very, very good stuff.
Oh, I've had the chicken puttanesca.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't get that as much anymore. I need to see if I can sweet talk her into making that. But yeah, so I eat well. We've been together for a while now. She has 3 brothers, that she's very close to. And,
very cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of my family as it stands, and I spent a lot of time in college, obviously. Yeah. I got 1 degree and then took some time off, got another degree, and then took some time off. Going to Georgia, Fran stayed here in Birmingham, and I moved to Athens, Georgia, to get my doctorate, and that was kind of a long distance thing for a while. It was kind of tough, but we made it through.
Yeah,
and then I came back here.
Again, it takes a strong woman, to support, especially like if you're in and out of school and spending all that money.
Really, really does. Really, really does. And she's about as good as they come.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She is.
Fran, we hope you're listening.
We love you.
We love you. Oh, and we love your chicken puttanesca.
We do.
And she's also an accountant, right? She's a CPA, right?
She was for a long time until she decided that was just a little too soul crushing.
That's not funny, but
yeah, but it just kind of wasn't what was making her happy in life. She's always been a creative person, poetic person. She's a writer. She's a poet.
Oh, nice.
She has the best musical ear of anyone who doesn't practice music every day, of anyone I've ever met. And I'm probably embarrassing her now. Maybe she won't hear this one. But
well, she also can use that to kind of help you keep it straight with the IRS, right? I mean, she kind of that's a great thing to know. That's a great thing to have, especially as a musician, because
we're not good with money.
We're not good with money, and oftentimes we don't get taxed from our paychecks.
Right?
We have to take care of that ourselves, which is very painful. Very painful.
Yeah. So yeah, that's us.
This is us.
Cue the music.
Yeah, cue the lawsuit. We're so frightened of getting sued. Okay, so that's a little bit about us and our family and our past and our musical journey. Well, I talked a little bit about my musical journey with my SK1 sampling keyboard. Oh, let me share something else funny with you. My dad, the reason I first got the keyboard. Okay, let me take it back. Before I got a keyboard, I got this little electric guitar, a Harmony guitar that I got at Sears. Very, very cheap guitar. And I got it because I was a big fan of The Final Countdown by Europe.
Yeah. Right.
And I got my guitar. I was like, Dad, I can't make my guitar sound like that. And he said, I think that's a keyboard, Jeremy.
I think that's because it's a keyboard.
So I got them to get me a keyboard for Christmas, and that's how that all began.
Oh, wait. Never mind. Wait. Nah, screw it.
Try one more time. I knew you wanted to do it. Yeah, that's close.
Something like, yeah.
But just
something like that.
Just different enough to where Europe won't sue us.
Right.
Okay, so what was your first instrument? You said bass or guitar?
Wow. So I guess the first instrument is hard for me to even remember. There's so much music going around in my family. I think I sort of stole one of my uncle's just little POS guitars and played around with it for a little while. In the beginning, and I would sit at my grandmother's piano a lot. Whether or not that counts. I think the first instrument that I ever owned that was just for me, it was a bass, and it was some knockoff brand, and I don't even remember now, but it came out of the Sears catalog. And I remember my parents dictated that I had to make straight A's, but if I made straight A's, they would buy me this bass out of the Sears catalog that I had seen and wanted. And I don't think they thought I would do it, but I did.
Challenge.
Yeah, challenge accepted.
Uh-huh.
But I did it, and they said, okay, well, I guess we got to buy him this bass now. Thank God he didn't ask for a drum kit.
Yeah, no kidding.
and so I bought this bass and played around with it a lot. Of course, my grandfather played bass, so he taught me a lot. I started playing bass with my grandmother. I eventually graduated to a somewhat nicer, I think it was an Ibanez. So I was playing bass through most of my high school career. At some point, I think I had tried to join a band as a singer, but I wasn't really a great singer, and we didn't have a bass player, so this transition was sort of inevitable.
Yeah, right.
I became a bass player and was just most of the bands I played in, I played as a bass player.
Right.
And then when I came to college, I played bass in the jazz band there and things.
Ooh.
Yeah, up against some very, very talented bass players.
Yeah, right.
People like Taylor Prop and
Giving props to Taylor Prop.
yeah, man, was he good. Wow, we were all kind of in awe of Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was basically, and then I started in college. I started learning music theory, and that sort of inspired me to compose. And the rest is just history, I suppose.
And it's continuing to write itself as we speak.
Indeed, it is.
Okay, man. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast and the genesis. Let me kind of relate a funny little story to you here, Matt. When I first got into the School of Music, my first year as a music student, I would perform with the concert choir.
I remember that.
Yeah. And we would oftentimes put on shows with the ASO, the Alabama Symphony Orchestra.
Right.
I would watch them working out their parts and reading music and thinking to myself, wow, by the time I graduate, I'm going to be that great. Well, by the time I graduated, I realized that I wasn't.
And wasn't going to be.
And wasn't going to be because I was out of the school. Yeah. How am I going to continue my education? How am I going to... I'm sure there's videos. I'm sure there's podcasts.
Not back then.
Not back then. And even today, like I said, the reason we're here doing this is because we couldn't find a very comprehensive and relatable and entertaining music podcast that actually uses music examples.
Yeah. It was real hard to find anything that got past just the very basics, at least in terms of music theory and things.
Right.
So there was a little niche there to be sat in, I guess.
So long after graduation, Matt and I maintained our relationship, and we would go in and have a few beers from time to time.
Yeah.
And I realized that while we're sitting here having beers and talking about music, maybe we could actually do
Someone else might like to hear this.
Someone else might actually get interested in this. So I think we had several planning. We put about a year or two into planning.
Yeah. The first time we said, "Do you want to do a podcast?" And this was totally Jeremy's idea, by the way, folks. So blame him. But the first time you said, "Do you want to do a podcast?" was like, "Yeah, I'd love it. Let's meet and talk about it." So the first time we met to have a beer and talk about the podcast, we basically just drank beer. We basically just drank beer. And the second time we met to talk about the podcast, we basically just drank beer again.
Yep.
And the third time, drank beer. By the fourth time, we were actually like, okay, let's start talking about what we would talk about on a podcast.
We might be our third year in, if not for all that beer.
Yeah.
But
it was important. Got the juices flowing.
But I always said that at one point I would go through all my college textbooks, everything I studied. I had this. You see it right there. You see that little plastic tub?
Oh yeah,
underneath there.
Yep. I have a similar storage thing for all of my.
And one day I'm gonna go back and relearn all that stuff. So I say, well, it's been there for about. I can't even say how long it's been there.
But it's been there a while.
But the music text came out. Music text came out, and I decided I did want to relearn this theory and maybe help other people do it along the way. So
yeah.
So here we are, man.
So here we are. It was our initial, and we've said this before, but our initial idea was to help music students in the traditional sense, people who are majoring in music in a university somewhere, to sort of help them navigate the road to passing their music classes and getting a degree. Over time, it really has evolved into just trying to help anyone who wants to know more about music learn things and better understand what's going on
Right.
with music, and that evolution has been part feedback.
Yeah.
It's been part just who decided to pick up and start listening to our podcast and tell us about themselves, and part just sort of us discovering how we really kind of wanted to talk and who we wanted to address anyway.
Yeah. Right.
So if you listen back to the old ones, you can sort of hear that evolution, at least in me, right?
Definitely an evolution. And it's funny, I kind of worry sometimes that people listen to our first couple of episodes and they're like, oh, these guys, this is for college students.
Yeah, and we sort of recommend you start with episode 1, right? To sort of get all the theory, because it's sort of cumulative knowledge.
Because you could actually be a 10-year-old and listen to the first episode and kind of get an idea of what melody and harmony are.
Right, yeah. But yeah, those were fun times. I wonder if we ought to go back and redo those.
Well, I wonder that. I actually wonder that. It's funny.
Yeah, that's an idea. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Should we go back and redo do they sound too dry comparatively now?
This is a very interactive podcast, actually. We like to hear music from our listeners. We like to play it. We like to take your questions and answer them online or on the podcast, and online, actually. We people got on Facebook and ask us questions from time to time, and we'll nerd out with you on Facebook.
Yes, we will. Probably more than you ever necessarily want. I've written some multi-paragraph responses to some emails. I know that.
Well, some of those you need multi-paragraphs to answer some of those questions. But we always love it. We always love to hear from you. So
we really do. And I've been so impressed with the questions I get from our listeners.
Oh, yeah. And the responses.
Yeah, they're intelligent questions. They're insightful questions,
And your success stories,
Yes, and we love those.
People talking about acing their exams in college and saying that we helped them out greatly with
Which
that.
is just great, isn't it?
It's just great, man. I can't imagine. It's so fulfilling. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, now here's the time where we're going to talk a little bit about, and those of you who have no tech interest whatsoever can maybe just fast forward about 10 minutes here. But this is a very important part of making music.
Mm-hmm.
Most every musician has gone into a studio at some point or wants to get into a studio at some point. And when you get into the studio, you're going to learn, you're going to want to know a little bit about the basic effects that people use.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get deep into it right now, but we are going to have a podcast down the road about music tech, and we're going to cover those things. But for those people who want to nerd out and learn more about our process and what we do, here's what's going on right now. We're in my basement, okay? It's underground.
Mm-hmm.
We have dirt covering these walls here.
Well, dirt behind the walls.
Dirt behind the walls.
They're not covering the walls.
We're not in a big old dirt pile. It kind of looks like it sometimes with how messy everything is.
Point is, it's a pretty dead space.
It's a very dead space, and for that reason, we can have microphones not so close to us and still not have to worry about background noise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what we're actually doing is we have these two SM81s. These are Shure Mic 81.
Which is just the workhorse of the microphone world, isn't it?
You've seen them before. They're kind of pencil. They're kind of cylindrical gray microphones. Often you'll see them used as overhead mics on the drum kit. I use them as my overheads for the drum kit. And they're kind of hanging over our heads about a foot or so away, angled inward at us.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt is over there sitting at the piano. And if he leans forward, he doesn't go underwater.
Right.
Because like if I really lean forward like this and start going over here, you see how I'm going underwater?
Yeah.
As I kind of come back over here and I'm kind of just leaning back under the microphone.
That's neat.
Because it's angled inward like that, it covers more range.
Yeah.
And again, because it's so quiet in here, we can just crank it up in post and still not have to worry about background
I've got to
noise.
tell you about an Alvin Lucier piece of electronic music someday.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I should probably also mention that I have a whole bunch of insulation up in my ceiling and egg crates everywhere and stuff like that. So that just contributes to the dead space.
Yeah.
So as far as effects, what we do is there's a certain chain of effects, and they affect each other where you put them in the chain. So what I do is I start off with EQ.
Mm-hmm.
Is the first effect I put up there, And when I'm EQing, I'm actually just rolling off the low end. So the human voice, the frequency range of the human voice on the low end kind of starts around 80 hertz.
Right.
So I roll off just about everything. I take down all the frequencies that are lower than 80 hertz.
Yeah.
So the voice is kind of crisp and clean. And then I even take off a little bit of the high end. So those
Sure.
S's aren't so strong.
Yeah.
And another thing that rolling off the low end helps is if there's a plane or a big truck going through,
Get less of that really low frequency stuff.
it's
Yeah,
going to knock
probably.
some of that off.
Yeah.
If the air conditioner's on, which I always try and turn the air conditioner off,
Right.
rolling off the low end will kind of help get that background noise out of the way.
Right.
Speaking of background noise, after the EQ, the next effect I put in is called a gate. And what the gate does is when our voices are actually happening, when we're talking, the gate opens up. So it's a cutoff. It's an audio cutoff.
Right.
And as soon as our voice is done talking, the gate closes, so to speak, and the volume returns to zero. The volume level goes down to zero.
And this is all designed to minimize the amount of background noise and just general distractions that are in the final sound.
Yeah, so if you're listening to us in a good set of headphones, it might actually sound a little sterile because there's not really much background noise at all. There's our voices and then there's silence, you know?
Right, yeah.
But most people are listening to us while they're in their car or on a bus or on a plane or on a train where background noise is everywhere. So you already have a noise floor to deal with. Why are we going to give you any more of a noise floor
Right.
to have to crank up? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the gate. You know, it's basically an auto volume kind of attenuator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then finally we have compression. So what compression does is it takes in a very simple way to explain it. It takes the quiet. You're putting kind of it's kind of squeezing the sound just like it sounds. The louder parts become a little quieter. The quieter parts become a little bit louder.
Right.
That's not exactly how it works out, but that's a very simple explanation of it.
Right.
So if I was to yell, it would take it down and put a cap on how loud that gets.
Yeah. So there's a sort of general volume range in which everything.
Yeah, and a limiter is more of a cap, putting a cap on it.
Yeah.
But compression and limiter kind of work in a similar way. So
Right.
that way, if we mumble, it'll be a little bit louder, and if we yell, it'll be a little bit quieter. Simple
Right.
as that. So it kind of keeps the volume level consistent, so people don't have to constantly turn their volume up and down
Right. Yeah.
as we
yeah.
digress, or as we get excited about stuff.
Yeah.
So that's basically those are the main effects that I use,
And then we just sit in here and talk about music.
and we just sit here and talk about music.
And the keyboard, right,
Yeah.
is actually a MIDI keyboard, right?
Yes.
So what we're doing whenever I play is we're recording a MIDI track.
Yep.
That goes into Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Along with our audio of our voices.
Yes. And another thing I should mention about that is we did have a MIDI episode
Yes, we did.
on MIDI, and it was a very informative and very fun episode. And I shared my sad MIDI story. If you haven't heard my sad MIDI story, you're in for a good...
Go check out his sad MIDI. It's
tear-jerking.
actually not that sad.
No. It has a happy ending. There's resolution.
Yeah.
But what we do is Matt's performing on the keyboard as we teach, but sometimes this keyboard, hit it hard, hit it soft. It's very dynamic, the keyboard. But what I do is I go back after the fact and I actually change all of the... There's the range we're talking about there. I go back and I actually change the velocity to where it's all at 100.
Yeah.
So all the notes are even, volume-wise. That way I think it's easier to pick out chords and notes and chords.
Yeah, he also doubtlessly goes and corrects a couple of my wrong notes and
I have. I can't say I haven't. I have.
oops. If I do anything super terrible, we have to go back. We have to just try again. But
I have the luxury to just march down the stairs anytime I want to and change something stupid I say creatively, and no one ever notices because the edit, it happens way more often than you guys realize.
yeah, there's a lot of editing that happens.
Matt doesn't have that luxury because we only do this once every couple of weeks, and then he's back at work, back in the grind.
The biggest thing for me, you guys, I'm sure think I'm a much better pianist than I actually am, and that is Jeremy's doing. But the biggest thing to me is when I'm trying to play theory concepts off the top of my head. Sometimes I go, oh shoot, was that the right chord? No, wait, hold on. No, this is it. This is, and a lot of that stuff has to get
and the cussing
edited out. And the cussing, has to get edited out.
Oh man. Oh, and another thing that's kind of interesting that I don't even know if you're aware of this, Matt, but part of the reason I put us so far apart, well, for one thing, we get separation between the microphones.
Right.
So if you're talking and saying something important and my belly goes, blah, 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 I can take that down, right? We have separation.
Right,
But also, because you're so far away from me, I kind of have to yell a little bit for you to hear me, and likewise.
Yeah.
So we're kind of yelling across the room. We're probably sitting about 10, 12 feet away from each other.
Yeah.
And that helps us with our projection, because I went back and listened to a lot of our older episodes, and it sounded like Kardashian girls.
Yeah, kind of like with the vocal fry.
Yeah. And that's really not good for you.
It's really not good for you. It really doesn't make a great podcast sound.
So we are kind of yelling at each other from across the room, and that's what we're doing down here, guys. That's kind of our setup.
Yeah, it's kind of fun stuff. Sometimes I had my keyboard was upgraded about a year in.
Yes.
I used to have this kind of tiny little
61 key M Audio is what it was.
Yeah, and then Jeremy sprang for the nice Yamaha digital piano with the weighted keys.
Weighted keys, 88 of them.
Yeah,
88 keys.
So that's that's what running your mouth about theory will get you, I guess.
I did it for you, Matt. All for you. That pedal keeps on sliding, I know, but...
Yeah, well, I've gotten used to it. I've gotten used to kind of bumping it over with my foot, kind of bumping it back into position.
Chasing it around on the ground.
Yeah. So yeah, we do all right with that. Yeah. We come down here about once every 2 weeks-ish,
Yeah, it's kind of how it's been. We kind of got into a groove where we'll record 1 week. I would release it the next week, and then we get together, record the following week. So.
Yeah. So we're together about once every 2 weeks. Podcast comes out roughly once every 2 weeks. We've only ever had to redo an episode once, and it was totally my fault. I just, digression is one thing, but going down the theory rabbit hole I went down was just not going to be fun for anybody. I won't tell you which one it was. So,
you will never know.
You'll never know.
But if we were to do that today, where we are, we might not have gone back and changed it, because now people have some pretty serious theory knowledge.
Yeah.
At this point, at episode 60, we just finished borrowed chords. Mixed modes. That's deep.
Yeah.
That is deep.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been as much of a tangent now as it was then. Back then, it was really too much of a tangent.
Yeah. Well, that happens sometimes.
For me, especially. Yeah. And but that was the only time we ever had to say, look, we didn't do. I didn't. It was me, really. I didn't do a great job. Let's try that again. This only happened once.
Yeah, well, it's not bad. That's not bad, considering 60 episodes in.
Yeah, and we've been at this since that initial beer for about 3 years.
Oh yeah. Since that initial beer for probably about 4 years. But we've been tracking. We've been tracking since July of 2016. That was kind of the kickoff.
But yeah, back in the beginning, we spent like a summer and we had all of these episodes built up.
Yeah.
So that we did a whole bunch within a few weeks, and then we were just kind of doling them out. It's like, oh, this is great. It's like we need to keep that pile up so that we can sort of have this buffer zone, and that has disappeared completely now. It is.
No, that would require us actually recording 2 episodes in one setting, and that can be a pretty long day actually.
Yeah, pretty tough. What with our other schedules having to work and
the theory brain would be screaming by the end. So.
Yeah.
We're trying to do this at a relatively manageable pace for all of us.
For everyone involved, yeah. And the good thing about a podcast is you can listen at your pace. If you want to do an episode a day or an episode a week or 5 episodes in a day, or
rewind that part where we talked about,
the whatever, yeah,
whatever. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. It's really changed a lot. So that's cool.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that when we were first learning to be musicians, just really didn't exist. We had our textbooks, but there was no such thing as YouTube, kids. There was no such thing as podcasts or iTunes or Stitcher or anything, kids.
Speaking of kids, let me just say this real quick. Because we're going to close it up by moving forward and talking about what we're going to be doing moving forward, right?
Right, yeah.
Here's what I'm hoping you guys can help us out with, because most of the feedback we get from our listeners are people who are like kind of in our age demographic. They're probably like late 30s to early 50s, and they're just kind of, music has always been a passion. They want to know more about it. But we haven't really heard any feedback from, definitely not from high school students, music students, whose input we would certainly respect, but even from like entry-level music students who are doing this in college.
Yeah, a younger college student. Yeah.
And those are the people that can really benefit from this.
Yeah.
And they should be telling their friends about it, because you can all get A's together.
You can all get A's together.
Yeah, so in the new year, let's see if we can find some more younger listeners, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I plan, moving forward, my plan is to release some of my OCDs. To let go of some of my OCDs about the order of release.
Is this kind of a New Year's resolution?
Kind of, yeah. I decided when we're going to be talking about instruments, I wanted to start with the most common ones, right? So we started with the piano, and then we got the guitar.
Right.
And then we did, and bass.
Yep.
And my next one would be drums.
Right.
And then start getting into strings like violins and stuff like that. But I just can't, it's hard to nail people down.
Sure.
So I'm just going to grab whatever instrument. I know I got a saxophone guy, Gary Wheat.
Yeah.
He's interested.
Definitely.
And I got a oboe
a
professor who plays oboe.
Nice.
At Jacksonville State.
Yeah, we can totally talk about those.
So I think that what I'm going to try and do is just let go of that stupid little thing that little limit that I put on myself, and just kind of get more into it. And hopefully in the new year, we're going to have more guests and more conversation with some serious musicians.
That's going to be awesome. I want to start. There's so much theory left to talk about.
This is true.
And one of the conversations Jeremy and I have had is, how deep do we really want to go?
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to a point when you're talking about Schenkerian structures and set theory and things like that, where it's, the question could be raised, how useful is this to, just people for whom music is a passion and they want to learn more? You've really gotten off into sort of the academic college side of music theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a question we have had. We're not there yet. There's still plenty of stuff that will be intimately useful. There's still plenty of stuff that will be very useful to absolutely anybody.
Yeah.
But the day is coming, and I could see ourselves branching into sort of the philosophy of music and the philosophy of music theory.
Uh-huh.
Why do we? Because this is something we've touched on off and on, but why do we study music theory? What should music theory be?
Mm-hmm.
Is an interesting question. Is music theory, a giant rule book to hit over the head of people who are not creating music in the prescribed way?
Mm-hmm.
Or is music theory something that makes you a smarter musician, a better musician? Is it something? For you to sort of say, well, I know music theory, so I know how to create music, and this is the way to do it. Or is it analytical? Is it designed to say, well, why does music work the way it does?
Mm-hmm.
What is that way? How does music work the way it does? And to get into some of these topics in some way or form is something that I would be interested in.
Absolutely. And music there's such a great universe of music out there and topics, and we got plenty more to talk about.
We have not even scratched the surface.
No, we have not. So we're going to continue this. We're going to keep it going. We're going to have another great year.
Indeed.
What else, man? Is there anything else you want to say before we close this episode out?
I guess not. Just Merry Christmas to all our listeners. Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
Whatever your jam is.
Winter
Hanukkah?
solstice.
Yeah. Winter solstice. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And again, we can't thank you guys enough for helping us make this a really great thing.
Indeed. And yeah, thank you all so much. Keep it coming, and we will do the same.
Thanks for your donations. Thanks for your participation. And thanks again. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you think that we have no side BS or side rambling, think again. Because
Remember, you all talk about how much you like to hear us digress.
Exactly.
So there you go.
We might get some emails. Okay, guys, that's
enough digression.
Enough
Now let's actually learn some theory.
Which I think we're going to get right into in the next episode. So
Most certainly.
start the year off running, hit the ground running.
Yes, indeed. All right, and thank you all.
Cheers.
Thanks again for another year of your support and listenership. We wish you good cheer and safe travels during the holiday season. Don't forget, the perfect gift for your musician friend is to let them know more about us. Music Student 101.